All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, and please, Mr. Groomes, can you introduce yourself and tell me your full name, year of graduation from Brown, your area of engineering expertise, and a little something about the work that you currently do.
Sure. My name is David Oscar Groomes. I was known as David when I was at Brown, but as I got into professional space, there was too many Davids, so I go by my middle name, Oscar now. That makes it a lot easier. I graduated back in the dark ages, 1982, and we had material science engineering was in its heyday then, not so much anymore, but I consider myself a metallurgist. That's another field that is not as much in demand as it used to be, but I worked in that space probably for about a year or two at GE in an industrial environment before getting into the business side of things and trying to create value. So I matriculated for about 20 years at GE and was a CEO in their in several different businesses, the spec chem business, the plastics business, one of the capital businesses. And then when ran an LBO, we bought out Alcoa specialty chemicals business, and I ran that. I was an expat on three different occasions. Once in Brazil, where I lived for 3 years, running the plastics business down there. Once running the polycarbonate business in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So I lived in Belgium then. And then in that LBO that I talked about with Alcoa specialty chemicals business, I lived in Frankfurt, Germany for a few years, running a global business. But I kind of retired from all that back in 2007, and have since been doing a lot of board work. I've had the pleasure of lecturing at the School of Professional Studies up there at Brown, as well as here at Queen's University, where I'm also a trustee. I sit on a number of boards, usually B2B stuff. I like businesses that make things. So materials businesses, chemicals businesses. I sit on the board of one abrasives company now, of a business that makes or takes recycles tires and reconstitutes them into their natural parts, so carbon black, mineral oil, and natural rubber. And it's a very clean process. So it's a very exciting thing to do. So those are the kind of things I've been doing. I'll turn it back to you. Yeah. Very
nice. And I didn't know you had so much globetrotting as part of your background. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. That's very cool. Now, can you tell us something a little bit about why you chose to become an engineer? You have, I'm sure, multiple career path options. What attracted you to engineering?
Well, two things. Number one, I had a high aptitude in STEM fields, or particularly science and math, the two ends of STEM, if you will. And I had an appetite for those areas. I like that subject matter. I was not fortunate enough to have parents, friends, or relatives that were engineers. I didn't even know what an engineer was. But what I did know is that they made a fair amount of money, a lot of money, relatively speaking, coming out with their bachelor's degree. So that and my aptitude is what led me to the space.
Got it. And what's your fondest memory from your time at Brown? I'm sure you have quite a few, but if you had to pick one, what would you say is your fondest?
Well, so I came to Brown from Tougaloo College. Okay, I didn't mention that, but I was a dual degree student, and I got a bachelor's in physics from Tougaloo, and then I came to Brown to get my engineering degree. And when I arrived at Brown, I was greeted by accident in front of I guess one of the libraries that's right there on the green. I think it's the John Hay Library or something. Mm-hmm. But I ran into a whole bunch of my fraternity brothers, and I got a warm welcome. And it was nice to be in a prestigious Ivy institution and see a sea of Brown, descend upon me and tell me lots of good stuff. But also tell me that I was only going to be there for a short period of time, because I had to maintain, I was on scholarship. I couldn't afford to go to Brown, and I had to maintain a 3.5. And they said, well, good, God, you better have fun. Why, you know, in these first couple of semesters, if you make it to the second semester, because it's going to be tough here. And I said, gentlemen, I will not only do well, I will excel, and I will be here for another couple of years, and I will leave my degree. And so I was kind of arrogant at the time, but it worked. And but the brothers, we had a great time. And you know, that welcoming into the space, the fondness of that engagement, that interaction, helped me feel at home. And it extended not only from the minority community, but to the majority community. I never felt like I was less of, or not as much as anybody else on campus. And that was some of the magic of Brown that made me feel good.
That's very nice, very nice. And I guess this is related to my next question, right? More often than not, successful people, when you interact with them, you find out that they had a really nice combination of mentors, both either officially or unofficially, that helped set them on a particular path. And I was wondering if you could share with us, you know, who your mentors were in shaping your career path. And, you know, for especially many young students who are trying to find a mentor, any advice on that process? And
right.
Yeah,
no problem. I think, you know, sometimes we let the word mentor or mentor protege, that combination, get in the way of doing what I think is really what mentoring is all about. And what it is trying to find your way into a space that you have no idea how it works, right? And that was particularly the case for me, not knowing any engineers. So I started looking and trying to find people who exemplified the types of characteristics that I wanted to have. So as I was aspiring to be, at first, the plant manager, man, I said, well, how do I do that? Or even before that, I wanted to be an engineer or a scientist. How do I do that? Well, one of the things that you do is you say, well, let's pick somebody who's doing that already. And one of the ways that you can engage that person is to go and ask them, hey, how did you get to do what you're doing right now? And there's not very many people who aren't flattered by somebody's curiosity about them. I found that always to be the case. And if you approach them with a fair proposition to break off some time, whether it's, hey, can you spare 5 minutes? Can I buy you lunch? You know, and so you can tell me about yourself. You're gonna get in that game, and that if you are open and listening, engaging with that person, that I'd say 70 to 80% of the time that can become the beginning of a mentorship or mentor-protege relationship. The first one I had on a professional side, I mean, I had many as a child, whether it was a teacher or a neighbor, or people who were doing things that I thought were cool.
Yeah.
But in the work environment, when I was at GE, I was given a presentation on my project, and I was a nerdy guy, and I had on like a check shirt like this and a striped tie. I was a mess, you know. But I thought my project, you know, was all of that, and I was presenting my project, and the plant manager was one of the guys in the audience, and he wasn't really paying attention. So I said, hey, tell me, you know, what's going on? He said, hey, how much money are you making for the business? And I said, I don't know. I said, but my project, this is what's going on. And he kind of disengaged again. And I thought the guy was the biggest jerk on the planet, right? So it took me a few days, but I finally got up enough courage to go knock on his door and say, hey, Mr. Beagle, you know, look, I wanna win here. And my project, you know, is viable. We're making tremendous strides in doing this. We're going to solve this issue. And he said, well, yeah, this is nice to do a science project, but this is not the university. And this is GE. We're here to make money, okay? If you wanted to do, you should have stayed in the university and go join the United Way, man. But here, we make money. I said, Jesus. So I said, well, I don't know how to quantify what I'm doing. And I looked at the guy and I'm like, I was desperately in need of help. And he said, well, look, let's break down the projects. And we went, I had 4 projects. One of the projects, it wouldn't have mattered if I solved the problem or not. It had no impact on the business beyond, like a couple of weeks, right? And then the next year that the line was going to be phased out, who cares, So I learned so much in that conversation and the subsequent conversations, because this guy adopted me as a protege. We cast aside a few projects, took on a couple more that had more meaning. He taught me how to quantify the impact of those projects. I enrolled in a productivity improvement program or contest that was, GE wide for all the management trainees like myself. And I won first place, had 2 honorable mentions the first year on the program. Second year, I got second place in an honorable mention, and the senior officer told me, he said, hey, Oscar, you can't get first place every year, okay? But honestly, that was the mentorship was a big deal. And it helped me, and it arose by just having the courage to seek an answer, right? And so that's what I'm getting at. You don't look to go find a mentor. Go find out how you can achieve what you're trying to achieve, and go try to find out how to eliminate a roadblock or find out how to clarify something that's confusing to you. And in the process of doing so, you may find that somebody takes a liking to you for whatever reason. Now, one mentor is not enough. That guy, Mr. Beagle, I guess I can say his name. I don't even know if he's still living, but he got put on special assignment, which is a code word for fired.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was put on special assignment for sexual harassment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was one of those crazy scenarios, and I was devastated. I was like, well, that was my mentor. What am I going to do now? But that the painful lesson there is that you can't have just one. You got to have a number of people who can support and teach you how to navigate in tough space. So I started building a whole cadre of people that surrounded me, whether they were inside of the company, outside of the company, and that was very, very helpful.
And what's so very fascinating about that story too is that, one, you're pointing out that you have to sort of be a bit brave, not shy about knocking on doors, right? I guess the worst someone can tell you is no. And number 2 is that you commented that you don't necessarily have to go out and seek mentors, but sort of seek answers to helping you navigate certain obstacles or trying to understand how to get to that next position or place in terms of a career path, or maybe just in terms of life. So that's very telling. That's very useful information.
Yeah.
Great, that's fantastic. So in the context of working in a company, so what is your advice for how to understand if a company you get a job offer from, your estimation as to whether they truly care about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how can that be something that you can sort of evaluate, if possible, in the interview process, right? So this is one of those things now, in the atmosphere is DEI. So the questions pertaining to now, perhaps this is one of your first job offerings, and you're just graduating from Brown, and you have an opportunity to go work for a company, but this is something that you're passionate about. how can one think about perhaps gauging or assessing the quality of that company's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and I probably have a different approach to most people in that regard. Look, DEI is a nice acronym, if you will, that everybody likes to throw around now. It's something that I was cognizant of when I was interviewing 40 years or so ago, but it's not something that has changed a lot. I mean, the progress that we've made has been almost erased. And we go through these roller coaster rides of making progress only to have it taken away, making progress, have it taken away. And this has happened for centuries, okay? If you take a chance to look at things, and you look at what happened after the Reconstruction period, or even during the Reconstruction period, where African Americans made some great strides and had some freedoms, only to have them taken away when people realized that, hey, wait a minute, these guys, they're getting a little out of control. And I fast forward to when I was at GE, we had a lot of guys, relatively speaking. We built up a team of over 7 guys that were running businesses, and we had about 25 on deck. That was as recently as 20 years ago. And then we had a change in the overall leadership, and the CEO, the big CEO of GE, that the guy wasn't as attentive. And all of a sudden, we went down to maybe 2 business leaders that were African American. And the pool of people that were in place to fill those positions dwindled from, say, 25 down to maybe 5. And a lot of everything else became important, right? We've had a similar scenario in the country. And sometimes it's an aftershock. You get big progress in the presidency with Obama taking the helm. And then right behind that, you get a guy who's way out to lunch and takes us back decades, right? Which is why the awareness around DEI has been highlighted. We're doing Simpson sessions again. These are things that we did when I was in the workplace. It's the same stuff. They're the same issues. So you ask about how, first of all, I look at the environment that I'm going into or that I'm going to engage into from a work environment is, hey, is it something that's suitable for me? And suitable means I can tell you, there's not going to be a suitable environment from a DEI standpoint in most places, unless you're going to a minority-run firm. And there you ought to worry whether or not you're going to be super competitive and able to compete if you don't have a diverse population and a diverse mindset to be able to win in a diverse world. But we need to be comfortable in the environment that we're in. And sometimes that means I need to have some employees, some practices, and some culture that's inviting. Like I mentioned when I got to Brown and I had fraternity brothers, that there was enough of a comfort level there to help me to progress and to assimilate something that was different. Okay, that's the kind of thing that I look at. So what do? You have your eyes open, you have your ears open, you observe, what's there. You ask what kind of mechanisms are in place. You ask about some of the demographics, but you don't shy away if the numbers may not be great. The numbers sucked when I started the game. I mean, I was frequently the only one, or I was a pioneer in a lot of places. But there was also evidence of people who had been successful in front of me that I could kind of learn from. Not a lot, but maybe one. And maybe even if that one, Mr. Beagle, that I talked about, my first mentor, he wasn't an African-American, but he was somebody who I could relate to, who related to me and embraced me. And so that's what, can I'm looking for ways to win.
Yeah.
Ways to win. How can I get comfortable in this situation? And in fact, for me, I want to be challenged. I want there to be a challenge, because with every challenge, there's an opportunity. If there's a sea of equality already, it's going to be tougher for me to stand out. Okay. As opposed to if there's a lot of things that are broken, wow, there's a lot of things for me to fix. Okay. So I look for environments that are challenging, not impossible, okay, but challenging as opportunities where I can stand out, where I can change the attitudes and mindsets of people, and I can win. And that's where I look at DEI, and that's why I have looked at DEI, and I don't let it become a burden.
Right.
Look at it as an opportunity. And if there are people that have archaic attitudes and ideas, I let that be their problem, as opposed to mine. And so, and that's kind of a crazy answer to your question, is to hard to, but I look for ways or an environment that's conducive to me being successful, and not so much that I'm afraid if everything isn't lined out already. And the reason I talked about the historical perspective, because we're never going to get into, as a minority, you're not going to go into an environment that is 100% suitable for you. You don't even have that in your own house, at home frequently. So I think that's what I look at.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So I'm curious now, if you had an opportunity, and this is positive and negative, no regrets.
Yeah.
If you had an opportunity, so built a time machine, and you went back to your first or second year when you were at Brown, what's the one thing that you would tell yourself?
I'd say keep doing what you're doing. And I've always been a guy or a person who dreams. And whether I'm walking in my neighborhood or in a neighborhood, I'm looking around and I'm like, I like that. How do I do that? Okay. So I'm dreaming, right? And a dream is nice, but a dream is realizable if you can chart a path towards achieving that goal or that dream. So you need a plan, okay? And if you looked at me, or I look at myself when I was at Brown, I was focused. I told you when I encountered my fraternity brothers, and they told me, "Hey, good luck. You'll be here a semester maybe." And I said, "Nah, brothers. I'm gonna be out of here in 2 years with my degree, and I'm gonna be at or near the top." Right? I knew that. I developed that level of confidence, and I had that goal established from when I was at Tougaloo, and I was ready to go. And I carry that kind of I dream a lot about opportunity, and then I try to path towards getting there, and I get focused, man. I get focused on it,
It's amazing. That's great advice. So final question. It's along this idea of sharing words of wisdom, and you've given a lot already in this interview. Brown's students, cut from the first year student to the student who's just about to graduate, they're at different points in life. And so if you had to talk to students in engineering at Brown, what's that one piece of advice that you would share with them?
Well, it goes right back to the prior question, I think. I mean, first thing is to, you think about what you like. I'd hate to have come from a family where they told me you're going to go to school and you're going to be a doctor. we'll pay if you're going to get you're going to med school. If you don't go to med school, we're not paying. I mean, so I mean, if I wanted to be a doctor, that's a different story, right? But I wanted to make money, and I like science and math, and so I figured out what an engineer was after I became one, essentially. But doing something you're passionate about, dreaming is not just doing something you're passionate about. It's trying to imagine how you can be better than most at the heights of whatever you're trying to do. Be the best at that. Arm yourself with all the competencies that you need to be the best at whatever you want to dream that you can be. Right? And it comes right back to what I said before. If you can dream it, start charting a path, right? And you got that path, you know, that vector can change. You're going to hit things that are pushing this way. But as you do that, as long as you look at what that goal is, you can navigate and you can get there. And that's what the focus comes from, you know. And again, going back to your other questions, well, how do you deal with some of those setbacks? Some are uncontrollable. That's where you have that cadre of people, that posse, if you will, those mentors that can help you to pull you back on track, or maybe help you understand that maybe that goal needs to be refined. And all of us, I know we do some stupid things, but we mess around and fall in love. We get married, you know. So what we thought we wanted to do here before we were married, all of a sudden there's two people got in this equation. Now you got a whole new ball game, right? But so things change, right? And you know, so I talk about marriage, and then there's kids, and there's all this stuff.
There's life, right?
And, yeah, life, right? So, but it's all the same thing for me, right? Find things you like. Understand how you can dream about making things that you like a reality. And because look, you're working 80-90% of your waking hours. Why do something you don't want to do, you don't like?
It's true. Yeah.
And I feel like the luckiest guy on the planet, you know, having I could die tomorrow. I tell you right now, I realized 90% of what I want to do. I'm trying to live to 200% of my goals. So I still got time to do stuff, but I'm very, very satisfied.
That would be a great slogan on a t-shirt. I'm trying to live to 200% of my goal. That's awesome. I love that. That's excellent. That's excellent.
Thanks.
Well, Mr. Groomes, thank you so much. This was, it's one thing reading your bio, and it's one thing, I've interacted with you in the past, but just hearing about some more of your story, and I'm sure it's so textured and so rich. It's, I got a lot out of this myself, so this is fantastic.
Cool. Well, hey, listen, I'm looking forward to engaging with students on campus, and or anybody else, faculty, the whole 9 yards. And I always make myself available for that. And I'll challenge you to engage me. I love speaking with students. I've done it up there in the past, but just not enough. Yeah. And we always have rich discussions. And I'm open. I'll share successes. I'll share failures. So it'll be a good time. Thank you for the opportunity.